mysteries abound around the world, from strange lights in the night sky to ghostly apparitions passing from one realm to the next. From the Great Pyramids of Egypt to what lies beneath the depths of Loch Ness. From Bigfoot to Atlantis, they are all mysteries waiting to be solved. Join Lori Phillips, Lauren Smith, Graz, and Billy Simmons as they search for the truth on Night Callers Radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. Today is May 5th, 2016, and we're at the very brink of summer down here in Texas. I'm here tonight with my wonderful friends, Lauren Smith, Graz, and Billy Simmons. Did I put enough gap there, Graz?
No.
Yeah, Billy and I haven't gotten married yet, so I guess that's a good enough gap. Graz and Billy Simmons.
Oh my goodness! So how are you guys doing?
We're doing.
We're doing, yeah. Kind of a motley crew tonight.
Yes, such a thing as a brink of summer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There's such a thing as a brink of summer. I thought it went from winter to summer.
Not here. Well, yeah, it's too close to fall this year.
Yeah, it's kind of like you get a tease, you get some really hot days, and then you get like 50 degrees. And then so it's still spring. But we're running our air conditioners now, so I say it's a brink of summer. Yeah, and heater sometimes.
And the heater at night, it's been like 44 degrees, 43 degrees at night, 90 in the daytime. It's typical Texas spring.
That's it. Has anybody had anything interesting to share tonight before we go to our guest?
You might want to specify something interesting that's Bigfoot related.
Okay. Well,
unless y'all want to hear what just happened to me about 5 minutes ago.
What happened to you 5 minutes ago? Our curiosity's up now.
No, I don't
know if you want to know.
I think where she's leading, I don't want to know.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, you have a toddler and a newborn.
I do.
Talent. Yeah.
I will say that this is semi-related to squatching. My toddler is bush broke. So,
what broke?
Bush broke. Do you know what bush broke is?
Oh,
I'm not
he is bush broke.
Billy, shut up.
Okay, so my husband is mowing the yard, just comes in and tell Mama what you just did. He's all offended. Apparently my husband had to go to the restroom, number 2, and decided to do it on the back porch right next to the grass.
Your husband went number 2 on the back porch? Oh, Adam did.
The way you worded that sounded like Ricky did that, so I don't know.
That's right. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, what's he trying to teach my grandson?
Yeah, he should be housebroke at that age, dang.
Oh, great. If he figures if the dog can do it, why can't he,
All right, let's move on to something else, and I'm going to mute out, okay?
Okay. Okay. How about we go ahead and bring our guest on, because our show's only going to be 90 minutes tonight, and we won't have an intermission, and I'm sure he has got a lot to say. And I'm very excited about this guest because we have not ever had anyone from Indiana, number 1. But number 2, he has knowledge of how the natives think about Bigfoot. And so I'm anxious to bring Wolfman Bratcher on. So if you don't mind, Graz, read us that bio, and we'll bring him on.
I never mind. Well, Night Callers Bigfoot Radio presents Robert Wolfman Bratcher from Indiana. Robert is a 53-year-old Native American of Shawnee and Cherokee blood, but his heart is 100% Native and Shawnee. Robert is a retired spiritual leader and holy man of the tribe. He also has 5 degrees in the natural sciences, nursing, and medicine, and 2 medical specialties. He practices family medicine as a profession, but before going into that field, he was a trained field biologist. Robert has always had an interest in Bigfoot and Sasquatch since a young child, especially watching the old 70s movies about such creatures. He became a true believer in knower after his first encounter in 2012 in Indiana while camping in the Hoosier National Forest. See, somebody else is a Hoosier, Billy. Wolfman has been addicted after squatching in both Indiana and Kentucky, having had multiple encounters and 6 sightings, 2 close up. He also knows the old Shawnee stories and even the ancient ceremony to honor the old ones. He currently runs the Facebook group, the Sasquatch Research Unit, to help others with their research and hit the field as often as possible as his busy schedule will allow. His native background and tracking skills, along with his experience as a biologist and current knowledge of anatomy, help him in his research greatly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Graz. How about it, Wolfman? Are you here?
I'm here with you guys, and I appreciate being offered to be on the show, and it's a pleasure to meet everybody.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you on, and it's our honor to have you on. And I've been very excited all week about this show because I've already got about 1,000 questions, but I'm not going to bombard you from the very beginning. The bio said that you were very interested as a child and that it just kind of, stayed with you all through your adulthood. But you say you had an encounter in 2012, was
Yes,
it?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us what happened?
Well, we were camping in the just on the outskirts of the Hoosier National Forest up near Martinsville, Indiana. We were back on an old logging road. We had the area to ourselves. It's an overflow campground that's readily used, but we kind of like our privacy, so we chose to go back there where the old logging road is, and we set up camp. Well, I came out that evening to relieve myself on the tree, and when I'm standing there by my tent relieving myself, I look over, and standing right at the old dumpster by my car is a large 9-foot shadowy figure standing there looking at me. And I'm thinking, now, wait a minute, I didn't park by the tree, and that tree is walking over closer to me now. So I shine one of those high-powered lights right on it. We were under the full moon. And I could clearly say that was no bear standing there. I had a 9-foot-tall Sasquatch looking him square in the eyes with his hand above his head because I was blinding with the light. And the only reason I didn't pee on myself is that's what I was doing on the tree at that moment. And then when I shined that light on him and he was sitting there staring back at me and I was staring at him, he came running directly towards me and I about ready to pass out. And then he turned at the last moment. And there was a logging gate right beside the tree that blocked the logging road so you couldn't drive back there. He stepped over the gate and then ran behind my tent. I followed him the entire time with my light until he hit the trees and I lost sight of him. Well, this gate comes up to about my navel, and I'm almost 6 foot tall. He stepped over it in one step and came going behind my tent. I went in excited and told my wife what I had just seen, and she couldn't believe it. She was half asleep. I said, "You're not going to believe it, but there was a Bigfoot standing in our camp out here." I said, "I saw it as plain as day. I saw its face. I saw how big it was. It ran right beside me that it could have reached out and swatted me if it had chosen to do so." And she looked at me. She said, "You're not kidding me." And she says, "No, I'm not kidding you. There was a Bigfoot in our camp." Well, in about 30 minutes, I woke her back up because rocks started hitting our tent. And for about an hour through the night, these rocks kept hitting our tent until finally a rock about the size of an apple tore through the rain fly and through the tent and landed in the tent. Well, we were both kind of terrified at that point. I sat there with my 45 on my lap until the first hint of daylight came up. As soon as we got up, we threw the tent in that dumpster, packed our vehicle, and got out of there. My wife said, I don't ever want to go back there again. I said, are you kidding? We're going next weekend. I've got to get a new tent. We've got to go do that again. I said, that was the most incredible thing in my life. I said, I've got to get another look at one of them. And that was it. That's been hooked. And I've had several encounters up in that very same campsite more than once. And I've talked to the residents up there, and they said, oh, yeah, we see them during deer season. They'll steer deer carcasses and everything, and we know not to leave pets out at night because they'll be taking off their leashes. So apparently it's well known up in that area that there is a Bigfoot that roams up there. But that was the sighting that started me on the adventure of actually wanting to learn and look. And I've been tracking now for the last 4 years. I've got several nice prints and casts that I've, picked up in different areas. But that one area up in the Hoosier Forest is a hot spot. We go up there as often as we can.
I see. Most people that would have an encounter like that would never go back into the woods ever again.
Well,
I'm amazed.
I guess I'm not squeamish when you run codes in people's houses. When you've went to a call for a home health case, and you have someone that all of a sudden dies on you on the living room floor, and he's an 18-month-old child. After you've resuscitated an 18-month-old on their floor with their family watching you, you kind of get to the point to where it doesn't take a lot. It does take a lot to scare you or to deter you from what you do, because at that point I almost looked at my career and said, you know what, I don't know if I can go through that again. Then you think, you know what, I did it once, why can't I do it again? I guess that was the same thing with that Bigfoot. I survived him once. I was bound and determined to survive him again, and I wanted to make sure I saw another one. I've said I wanted to make sure I saw one in daylight to make sure that what I was seeing that night was not a hallucination, even though I got prints behind my tent that night, and I've got a destroyed tent to prove it. I still wanted to see one in the daylight. And finally, after a couple of years of, searching and finding prints, I did see another one in broad daylight very close. It jumped up from behind a tree or a bush, a young one, and ran in front of me, and it was terrified. I saw the look on its face, and it was more afraid of me than I was it. And I was yelling at my team, can you see it? Can you see it? And they're all yelling at me, get your camera out, get your camera out. And there was a camera hanging around my neck, and I forgot. I mean,
that never happened.
One of those, nope, never happens. It's like, you dummy, you've got a digital camera right there, and the thing ran over the hill before I ever got the camera up to get a good picture of him. But that's twice I've seen one up close and less than 30 feet from me. And it's like, you know what, I don't care what anybody says. I practice medicine. I've been to school. But once you see one, there's no denying. I mean, that's not a bear. That's not an optical, illusion or anything else. That is a living, breathing being that was staring back at me. That face was as human as you're going to get without being human, and it looked right at me when I looked at that. When I looked at that young one that I scared out from those bushes, I could see the terror in its face when it saw me and took off running. It's like, no, that is a being that lives on this planet with us. It shares this planet with us. It's a leftover. It's a relic hominid that just has survived like we have. And it is out there, and people may not want to believe that. I said, but of all the sightings and all the evidence and of all the new species and all the new things we find every day, why can't there still be some mystery left in this world? And I guess that's part of what attracted me to keep going out, and I still go out. I went out a couple of weeks ago and me and my partner were out in the woods, and we had rocks thrown at us. We didn't see anything, but we still had rocks thrown at us while we were out in our area, and we go out there as often as we can. And that's still here in Indiana.
Mm-hmm. What about your wife? Did she ever go back with you?
Yes, she did, but she made me buy her a camper. She will not sleep in it. We went back once in the tent, and we had another encounter that scared her to death that night, so she will never sleep in the tent again. She made me go out and buy a camper, so anytime we go camping, she sleeps inside a metal camper. She will not sleep in a tent anymore.
What happened?
One came back, and it didn't do anything. It came up to the tent and pushed the tent down and growled at us and made huffing noises and just kept running back and forth, and you could see its hand as clearly on the side of the tent. it was almost like it was having fun. I hit the car alarm once and scared it off, and it came back again and kept doing it. Did it all night. Never did do any damage to the tent. Never hurt us. But for a period of 2 hours, it kept pressing on our tent and making noises at us. And she was so terrified that she sat there on the cot and wouldn't sleep the rest of the night. And I was so excited. I just said, I got to get to see it. You're not going out of this tent. I said, yeah, I am. I'm going to go out and see if I can see it next time it comes out. And she said, nope, I'll never do this again. She said, that scared me to death. So she has been back camping, but it has been in a solid metal trailer each time.
Have they rocked the trailer or tried to do anything to the trailer?
No, never anything in the trailer. They have come into the camp, same campground, all 3 times. We've left food out for them. This is one of my favorite stories. We made cornbread pancakes for dinner, and my wife burnt 2 of them, and we had 6 left over. 2 of them were burnt. We left them sitting on the table with an apple that night. We came out the next morning. The 4 good corn cakes were actually taken, but the 2 that were burnt were set over to the side like, no, we don't want those. Those are burnt. You can keep those. But they took the 4 good ones in the apple. And we had a print in our camp. We found one good print in the camp where they came in. And I figured if it was a deer or a raccoon, it would have eaten the burnt ones. And we would have seen crumbs around where it had been eaten. These were just taken, laid aside, and everything else was missing.
So would you consider this aggressive behavior or just curiosity or interaction? What would you classify?
I consider it more of curiosity, because every time we've had rocks thrown at us, they've landed right at our feet. Me and my partner were standing together, and a large rock landed between us. I've had trees, limbs, and stumps thrown between us right to where we were all standing. They land in the middle of us. We've never been hit. We've never been threatened. I have been growled at once or twice, but I don't know if that was considered, aggression, or it was just it making a noise to acknowledge that it was there. But with their strength, their size, and the speed is even more impressive than their size when you see one run, there would be nothing any of us could do to defend ourselves against one. It'd be like, 9-10-foot grizzly all of a sudden showing up in your camp, and there would be nothing left of you. I mean, they're powerful, they're large, they're intelligent, they have good aim with rocks. I'll tell you that. If they can land one at my feet and not hit me, that is precise enough aim. And a lot of the animal kills I've investigated over the 4 years where I have found deer, I have found where a rock was used to cave in one side of the skull. So whether they're using it in their hand or they're throwing it, they can use it as a tool and do significant damage. If they can cave a deer skull or a cow skull in it, is what I've seen, they could have easily done the same to me, and they've never done anything to harm me. I've never felt threatened. I felt stupid a couple of times in the woods where they've outsmarted me, but, not being able to get a sight of one, but I have never felt threatened when I have been out. I don't know if it's my own stupidity or just that they're cautious, they're intelligent. They know that we have the ability to harm them, and I honestly do not believe they are going to take the risk in being, identified and then becoming a threat to people if they start harming us. So I just don't think they have a lack of intelligence to know that, hey, I shouldn't do this because this could put my own safety in jeopardy. But I do believe they're curious. Otherwise, why would they interact with us?
Other than the huffing and the growling, have you ever heard them make any other vocalization?
Yes, and actually my wife has and my team has. We've heard them vocalize, and the way I describe it, to me it sounded like an old caveman trying to speak Japanese. I don't know everybody says it sounds Native American. Well, no, I've spoke Cherokee and Shawnee in my life, and it does not sound Native American. Maybe a word or two. If I stretch my imagination, I might be able to say that's a Native American tongue because there's over 700 of them. There's bound to be a lot of it I don't understand and know. There's a lot of my own 2 languages I don't understand, more that I don't understand than I do, actually. So, yes, there could be some similarities in the words, but to me it sounded like an old caveman like in the movies, but yet he was trying to speak Japanese. Garbled, very quick, very guttural, some unique sounds to it, but nothing I could discern as a language that I have ever heard spoken. And I've heard a male and a female talking at the same time, and you could hear the differences in their voice. Just like if me and my wife were talking, you can hear the differences in our voice. And she actually heard the two voices. She went out with me when I was working with a team in Kentucky and happened to hear their voices when we were out there. And that's when we had the log thrown into our camp right by our fire where we were all sitting there. So I know they have good
firewood for you.
Well, and what's funny, every time we have left and come back and we've left them things, there's always something on our fire pit, a gift, a turtle shell, a turkey feather. We had a deer skull with a rock glued into it with some kind of mud in a design that was left right on our fire pit there. So they have communicated. We've had them make different structures out of logs and stuff on top of our fire pit. We've had them do things with our cameras to avoid our cameras that have made us laugh that they actually outthink us when we've tried to leave cameras up. It's just amazing that it is a thinking being. It may not think in the same manner that we do, just like another culture wouldn't, but they do think. They are intelligent. If they can make tools, if they can make shelters, some of the shelters I've come across in combing the woods that I found that there'd be no reason for a man to build something like that, yet they have built shelters where I found deer carcasses in them. That says they're intelligent and can make tools. But I can say from what I've seen of their handprints and of the time I have actually seen one of their hands on my tent, they have opposability to their thumb, but they do not have the opposability that we do. Its placement is back in a different angle than what ours is, but yet they have more opposability than, say, one of the great apes would. It's like almost a hybridization between a lesser primate and then a modern primate, ourselves being the modern primate. Their thumb placement is almost kind of like halfway between the two. So they do have the ability to do some rudimentary tools, but they don't have the fine dexterity that we do.
Did you find any differences between the Sasquatch that you encountered in Kentucky and the ones in Indiana?
Not really, other than the ones in Kentucky seem to be a little bit more vocal. I've never heard the ones in Indiana. It took a while for them to interact in any way, but I've never heard the vocalizations out of them. But over in Kentucky, which we're just talking of maybe 100 miles difference in territory, they're more vocal. You hear the howls, you hear the different vocalizations that they produce, the grunting, the growls. I've heard most of my vocalizations over in Kentucky. I've only heard vocalizations once. I take it back, twice. I heard them whoop throughout one morning, about 4 o'clock in the morning till about 5:30 till the sun came up. I heard two of them whooping on two different ridges up there in the forestry. But other than that, I've not heard the howls. I've not heard any of the other vocalizations or anything up in the forestry that I've heard over in Kentucky. I've heard all the vocalizations mainly over in Kentucky. So that may be the difference, but as far as curiosity and wanting to interact and taking gifts, I find the ones in Kentucky, at least in the area that I, researched with the team over there, they were gracious enough to let me come out with them for several months and work with them. I did see that they had more of a habituation there, so they were more wanting to interact, willing to take gifts and leave things in return. Though I've had things taken up in Indiana, it's usually only out of the camp. When I've left stuff in the woods and came back, it's untouched. But they're willing to take stuff right out of your camp. So I don't know if that's because they're untrusting if you leave bait, but if they think it's something you're eating, it's safe, and that was the difference in the level of trust. But stuff we've left up in the Trimble County area in Kentucky, they take readily anything we leave for them. They'll even eat peanut butter out of jars on the side of the trees that we leave.
No, Hoosiers are smarter, that's all.
That's probably it, because we have tried every baiting in our habituation area. We get them to interact by, throwing stones and that at us or moving around us in a circle when we're in an area, but we've yet to have them take the bait we have left for them. They will not touch it. Over in Kentucky, it's gone the next time we go back. So that's the differences in the two I've seen. And you might be right. Hoosiers are, well, I can't say that. I was born in Kentucky, but I was smart enough to come to the sunny side of the river, so I at least I did that. And I've lived over here 24 years now, so that's pretty good, more than half my life.
Wow. Well, can you tell us about some of your other encounters before I really want to discuss the Native American aspect?
Sure. Most of our encounters I'll get where we will hear them move, and occasionally we will see one like a shadow between a tree. We have I have a few photographs I've gotten just like a arm behind a tree I've caught at the last moment, or I've got one's head peeking out. But just like everybody else, modern cameras are, by nature of design, are horrible in the woods. A modern digital camera focuses on whatever's nearest. When you're trying to shoot through brush, it focuses on tree limbs that are closer to you, and everything else in the background is blurred. So that's one of the reasons with modern cameras like cell phones and digital cameras, you're not going to get a good picture of one unless it's out in the open, and they're not that dumb to be caught out in the open. They just are not going to expose themselves if they can help from it. At night, you're not going to get a good picture.
That real good.
Well, see, all the pictures I've gotten, it's like I don't share them very often because they're just, you can say, well, you see a blurry figure in the background. Well, yeah, that's what it is. It's a blurry figure. I've just not gotten good pictures of them. The few times I've seen one out in the open, unfortunately, I've not been able to get a good picture because of the main reason it was me. I was excited and I didn't try to get the camera out or.
No, because you're visually trying to see everything.
You're
just trying to absorb it in mentally. Yeah.
And your adrenaline's going, your endorphins are going, and in all that moment, the only thing you're thinking is, I'm seeing something that I'm not supposed to be seeing. This is not supposed to be here, and yet it is. And I want to see it. I don't really care about, and I'm a horrible photographer. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm not thinking about that camera. Half the time when we go on vacation, my wife says, "You take our camera?" No, it's back at home sitting on the table. I'm bad. We just went to the Grand Canyon a few weeks ago, and that was one of the first vacations I've taken that I actually took my camera to, and I've still not unloaded pictures from it. So that tells you the kind of photographer I am. My partner laughed at me, said, "Did you bring your camera, or did you have to go back home and get it again before you got here?" I had to turn around and go back and get it again. I'm bad with cameras. But, that's... the different encounters I've had are usually them observing us in their area, either, I guess, as caution or as curiosity. They follow us. They stay out of our line of vision in the brush. They distract us. I know more than once we've been distracted by a rock or something being thrown by us, and I know it so another one can get out of view because we've gotten too close. Because we'll turn to see where the rock lands, and then we'll hear something behind us run in the brush. And by the time we've turned, it's gone. So the old term ninjas of the forest, I liken them to the Marine snipers with the ghoulie suits that you can be right next to and not even know you're there one because they're so quiet and they blend in so well. That's what I liken one to. I did a demo with the Marine Corps one time. I went into one of their forest areas where they had Marine snipers, and I said, I don't see nothing, and one tugged on my leg. He was sitting there right beside me in a ghoulie suit, and I did not even know it. I could not see him, and he was right there, and he pulled on my pants leg, and I looked down, and it's like I had to look again until I looked up, and I saw his eyes. That's how well they camouflage and they know how to hide. So it's, just to even get a glimpse of one, it's more movement than we see anything else, or they throw something to distract us. Once in a while, I have the other ones I've seen, it's only because I've gotten too close and they have felt uncomfortable and wanted to get out of there. Or coming out at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was one raiding the dumpster looking for food in our camp because he knew there could possibly be food in there. And we get a lot of reports of that in this area. The campgrounds get raided by them all the time. There's one in Kentucky that we go camp at, and I've never seen him. I found prints. They call him Big John. He's supposed to be gray-colored. He has been seen in this one campground raiding the dumpsters. There's been reports of him over the last 30 years, and we went to that campground a dozen times trying to hope to find evidence of him, and I never have, but there are reports of him raiding that campground there. Same thing where I camp in Morgan Monroe. They've been seen there. Bernheim Forest is over in Louisville. There is one that throws their dumpsters down in a ditch when he raids them. So they've changed they chained their dumpsters up against this new concrete pillars so the dumpsters can't be moved. And what they told the general public was it was because of bears. Well, there's no bears in Bernheim Forest. I've hiked that for years, but there is a Sasquatch in there. I've got prints from him. I've not seen him. I've heard him, but I've gotten prints from him in there. And when he doesn't find anything in the dumpster, he picks it up and throws these metal dumpsters down into a gully. I could not lift these metal dumpsters. They're heavy. They're hundreds of pounds. They're a dumpster. But he's rolled them down the hill. So that's a common thing we see in this area is dumpster diving with Sasquatches. They're looking for food.
Yeah. They're opportunists.
Yes, I mean, and if I was a homeless man, and some of my homeless patients when I get patients that come into the clinic that are homeless, they do the same thing. That's how they survive. They only come into the clinic when they get something so bad that they have to come in. That's when they actually will come in and see me and say, well, look at this big old nasty infected thing on my leg that I've got, and I finally come in to you for it. They don't want to come in for routine medical care. They come in when they have to. Well, they dumpster dive too. I've seen them here in Clarksville. We got one called the Troll that lives underneath one of the overpasses. He's a troll of the bridge, and he's out looking at dumpsters all the time around here. We've seen, and he'll flat out tell you, I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to beg. I don't want help. I just want to be left alone. And I kind of figure that's the way they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
go ahead.
Got to ask you this. When you were growing up, your parents, did they know about the Sasquatch?
Never, other than watching them on TV. I mean, I always felt a species out in the Northwest, California, up through the British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, the Canadian wilderness up there. There could be things there, even new species of bear we've never even encountered because of the habitat that's there. Even though it's been slowly, diminishing over the last several years, I figured there very well could be a species that existed. Bigfoot up there. There's been, tribal reports. There's been, many sightings. So I did not dismiss the ideal of one being, possible. Now, in 2012, it's been 4 years ago this month now, about 4 years ago this week, is when I saw that one in Indiana here in my camp. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. There was one in my camp. I mean, that's just, other than the face being different than what I always pictured, from TV and movies, it doesn't look like, all the Hollywood Bigfoots we see. Everything else fit the description. Exactly. Conical head, large structure, longer arms, massive chest. Everything fit, the big feet and that, everything fit just like you see in TV. The face looked human. It looked to me like if you could imagine what a Neanderthal man looked like, but make him an African-American Neanderthal. That's what it looked like to me, a black Neanderthal.
Wow.
That's exactly what one looked like. When I looked in its eyes, it looked back at me. That was a human eyes. I mean, I've seen every great ape. I've worked with every animal species you can imagine over the years when I was a biologist, and that was not an animal. That was a thinking being that stared back at me both times I've seen their face. It just, it's not an animal. It is a being. It's, exactly what it is. I don't know any more than you do, but it was a human-like being looking back at me.
Have you ever tried to interact with them, like talk to them, and
we've gone out. I've tried the different vocalizations. The only vocalizations are any kind. I don't get knocks returned very often. I have a few times. What I've had luck with is whistling. I've gone out and whistled and had them whistle in return to me. But any vocalization, and it may just because I sound like a wounded Wookiee when I try to imitate a Sasquatch, my vocalizations just aren't that good. The only thing I've ever had, I've had my whistles returned. So I have had whistles returned, and I have had knocks returned. In this area, what we see more of, or at least what it sounds like, and what we've been able to reproduce, they don't use wood to knock on trees. They use stones. They pick up a rock, and they bang against the tree. Where you see in the Finding Bigfoot shows and that, they're always wanting to do wood knocks with baseball bats and that. In this area, we've heard them hit rocks on the tree, and we've been able to reproduce that with rocks. We've gone up and tried the bats, we've tried wood sticks, we've tried everything. But when we've taken a big rock and smacked it against a tree, that's what it sounds like to us, at least in the partner I research with. And I'd like to mention my partner's Rick Sandlin. He's on the. He may be listening to us right now. I'm not sure. I want to give a call out to him because he goes out and has my back in the woods. He's been my squatching buddy now for quite a while, and he drags me out in the woods every chance he gets. He's truly probably more addicted than I am, so he's a great partner to go out with. But we've tried to reproduce their sounds, and what we have found is a rock clacking against a tree is what we hear more than a stick or anything else would.
Okay.
So we have had interactions.
What about rock clacking? Have you ever heard that?
I've heard that once, but I don't know if that was a communication or not, because when we went down the area that we heard it, we found two rocks together, but we found the pile of walnuts, or something had been breaking walnuts apart. So whether they were communicating with the rock on the rock, or they were just doing like you or I was, they were underneath a walnut tree, and there was a pile of walnut shells broken between two rocks where something had been down in this canyon breaking walnut shells. Now, was that a squatch? Well, considering I was out in the middle of the forestry and not on any path where I found this, I don't see where it was a person down in there, a few miles off of a trail, but I won't say that it wasn't. I didn't see anything other than a pile of, shells and the two rocks together. But other than that one time, I cannot say I've heard rock clack on rock. It's usually rock on a tree that I've heard. But of course, I live in a heavily wooded area, so that would be, a reason. That's usually where I research at. Both areas are heavily wooded, and that's why likely we hear the rock on trees.
Now, rock on a tree seems like it would make more of a thudded sound as opposed to wood on wood making more of a hollow sound.
It does, and it sounds more like, how sharp a woodpecker is when it hits a tree, and so, of course it's rapid, so you can tell. Well, it's more of a sharp but a dull, like thud when you hit the tree.
Right.
I mean, is what it sounds like. It has a distinct tree, and it seems like there's more than one type of tree. There's one tree in this one area that they tend to go and they hit because it has a familiar thud to it, and that those species are popular in this area that we're in. So I'm thinking they use trees with different resonance to produce different sounds, but that's the ones we've heard, and it is different than wood. Wood on like a baseball bat. I have a big old dowel rod that I walk with. It's my walking stick. When I hit it on the tree, it is it's a very sharp. It's a gunshot-like sound. Where they take a rock, it's got a totally different sound to it. The tree on tree travels more. It's louder, and there's, human habitations nearby. So I'm thinking they're using something that doesn't have the distance travel to communicate because they don't want it heard. So maybe that's why they're using rock on tree in our area, just so they're not as likely to be discovered with their own communications.
That's true. And with the advent of finding Bigfoot, everybody knows that they make this sound and that sound, and they use wood knocks and stuff like that. I know from my own personal experience, I over-researched an area, and they actually changed the way they communicated because I knew how they were communicating. So they actually changed things up.
And see, if I was wanting to remain undiscovered, especially with the large majority of the population of an area, I wouldn't follow a pattern because patterns is what gets you noticed. Using the same trails, staying in the same area, using the same communication. All these things are things that draw people's attention. Repetitiveness is how we identify things. If you walk out in the woods and you've heard 4 different knocks, whistles, grunts or different things, and they're coming from different areas, you're likely not to know what they mean. But if you hear a continuous tone of a rock on a tree or a dowel rod, in my case, on a tree, or whistles over and over again, you're going to notice that repetitiveness, and you're going to be drawn to it. And thus, you're going to be able to discover where it's coming from. And I think that they are more likely to change their modes of communication just to keep you from being able to hone in on their location. That's also why I believe they migrate not only to follow food sources, but also not to remain in one area too long to be detected. We found a beautiful habitat that they had built, this shelter that was built in a park area, and after we went to it a time or two, they abandoned it. They would not go back there. So we chased them out of a beautiful structure they've made, and I'm sure they've made another one because they're still in the area, because I have found prints and they've been sighted since, but we have not found another structure to date. We found the structure in our one research area. It's not been touched or been used that we can tell again, and I'm sure it's the same thing. Oh, we've been discovered here. We need to move on, and now maybe they know we're here, let's move over here, and then we'll see what we can find out. And if they find us here, we're going to move. And then who knows if they move back. My feeling was they're intelligent enough. They're not going to use, a structure again, or if they think their communication is being discovered, they're going to stop using that form of communication too. And what I've learned from talking to different researchers, each area has its own unique form of communication. Yeah, they use the tree snaps and they use the different tree formations. That's because that's available to them. And snapping a large sapling off with your hand shows, hey, I'm bad, I'm big, look what I can do and you can't do. Or they can point that in a direction and say, hey, look, go this way, that's where I found deer last time. Or, hey, this is to where we're sleeping tonight, go over here so you don't get lost, dummy. Things like that. They change up. I've seen in certain areas where they use rock piles, and it's always near a game trail or a water source. I've seen tree markers on game trails are pointing towards areas to different habitats where deer sleep, or to mark roads, or to mark human trails. Whether that's what they're intending or not, that's what it at least appears to me. They're using different communications in different areas, maybe that they've developed separately, just like Cherokee and Shawnee language. They lived across the river from each other. Our two languages are nothing alike, and they are very different. In fact, they actually have different origin roots of where they come from. Even though originally we're genetically the same people, our languages are, diversely different, than each other's, but yet we lived across the river. In fact, the old joke is between my two tribes is the Shawnee men would go across the river to marry the Cherokee women because they were nicer. Well, you take families of Sasquatches, they live in different areas, they may have developed their own distinct, form of communication or language. And then again, they may have a form of communication just like the natives have with sign talking. As a Shawnee, you may not understand me talking to you in my language, but if I use the universal sign talk that most Native American tribes knew, I'd go out west and talk to the Pawnee, and we could at least get enough communication between each other to understand, hey, I'm not trying to kill you. I just want to share your water for the day or something, or hey, let's trade or something. I always figured with the communication that I have seen, as diverse as it is, I also believe they probably have a rudimentary form of communication that we have just not hit upon yet. And I tend to think that's the stick structures they use, because there's a commonality, at least in the areas I've been in, of the stick structures at all. The X's, the broken branches that point to different things, the X's laying on the ground, the interwoven branches, almost as if they've got their own crude alphabet or language that they all understand, but yet when you go to the different areas where the different habitats or family units are, they may have their own unique form of, communicating with each other. So to me, that shows intelligence. It also shows diversity. And if you have that diversity, you have a population that's thriving. But, just like animals, we have seen animals, what we call bottleneck, to where they get genetic defects. Two incidences. The red wolf is not a natural species. The red wolf is a coyote hybrid species. I've proven it many times with different skulls, and genetically they've proven it. There is not a species called the red wolf. It was a hybrid of the coyote and the gray wolf, the timber wolf, Canis lupus and Canis latrans. So we know that genetic bottleneckings happen in the United States. You go down to Louisiana and Arkansas and the Boggy Creek legend and that, you see a lot of three-toed Bigfoot prints down in that area. If you get a genetic defect into a bottleneck, it tends to reproduce. So maybe in that area where the Squatches were interbreeding more, they do in Kentucky when they're human, so why should they not be Squatches doing it down in Arkansas, Besides the point. But they get into that genetic bottlenecking, they start having, lack of diversity, and you can see that in that one population with the footprint. Another thing, the dogman theory that you have. Well, if you look in human beings, you can get especially in an African American population, you can get a significant prognosticism going on. Prognosticism, I can't say that word, my mouth's getting dry, where they have the pronounced large overbite jaw that almost looks canine. You could get that type of an inbreeding with a Sasquatch to make it look like what people think and are seeing a werewolf from Hollywood, and it's really just Sasquatch that have some characteristics that are familiar from a genetic bottleneck. There's this area in Kentucky where that's noted. There's a lot of reports of Bigfoot coming out with that large nose and longer hair on their head. People say that's a dogman. I consider that just another variation of the Sasquatch, just like the three-toed Sasquatches down in Arkansas and the Boggy Creek area where they've seen those three-toed prints. Three-toed humans exist. There's an old playmate called Deborah Jo Fondren, had 3 toes on 1 foot. So it can happen in humans. Why can it not happen in a subhuman species, Bigfoot? Sorry, my biology gets a little bit away from me there.
That's fine. It's fascinating. Fascinating.
So if they have the diversity with it.
Yeah. Sure. I was going to ask you about the Shawnee stories.
Okay. Well, the Shawnee stories, over the last few hundred years, the stories have died down. What we called Sasquatch was the old man of the forest. And our legends say that they were here when we got here. They came to America before we did, okay? We encountered them, and there were even stories of them teaching and trading with us. And some of the legends go that when the white man came with guns, the Sasquatch left the area, and the Shawnee no longer saw them anymore. In fact, the ceremony that we have is a few hundred years old. Very few know of it. It's not been practiced. I found it in some old writings that were passed down to me from the elders, and that's the only reason I know of its existence. I know of, parts of the ceremony have carried over into other ceremonies. I see that happening, but the actual ceremony hasn't been practiced in our area or, to honor them. It was a ceremony to honor the old man of the forest. And in our belief, the old man of the forest was the guardians of the forest. And one of the legends say they guarded the sacred grounds and the burial grounds, which kind of goes with a lot of the sightings, why they're attracted to cemeteries and burial grounds. I don't have an explanation.
And burial and the mounds.
Yes, I do not have an explanation in science for you on that. I mean, with a man with 5 degrees in science, I don't have one for you. I will flat out say, I said, usually I can pretty much give you an answer for any of the, what I call the supernatural phenomena. I can usually give you a rational explanation for why they're attracted to the burial grounds and the burial mounds. I do not have an explanation. Is it a spiritual thing? Do they have a spirituality? Well, if they leave feathers, which are sacred to my people, they leave skulls with markings and stones glued in them. My partners reminded me that in one area we go into, they leave as markers along our trails, the trails we follow. And they use this one type of log that has this green glowing liking on it. And they're always stuck in the ground. And I mean, they're stuck in the ground to where we have trouble pulling them out. We couldn't do it. So something very strong is driving these in the ground along our path that me and him walk. Are they communicating with us? We know you're here. This is your path. It's okay. What does it mean? And it's always this one tree species with this greenish glowing moss on it. What does that mean to them? Is that a language? Is it something spiritual to them they're trying to tell us? Why are they leaving things like turtle shells? Why do they leave the turtle shells for me? And it's like, well, I take turtle shells and turn them into rattles. That's what I use them for. And when they leave me a bone or something, I'll turn it into a rattle. So are they giving me something they know? They sense the Native American blood? I don't know. Are they just doing that because that's something they've always done? It means something to them. That that turtle shell means something to them, and they'll leave it for me, and it'll be right where I've left something, or right on one of my paths that I'll find it. And I've found 3 now, so I know it's not a coincidence. And I've got probably a dozen turkey feathers that they've left me. And I bring each one home, and I use them to make things, ceremonial things. So, the burial grounds, I believe they bury their dead. I actually do believe they have their own form of a spirituality. I believe they bury their dead. That's why we're not going to find one. We're not going to find a body. I don't believe there may be nomads out there, and maybe one day one will get killed and we might find one. There's been a few reports of such things. Most of them are not very credible. But I will say that I have been out in the woods where man doesn't go. I've been tracking, and I have found large dirt mounds that have been buried deep in the woods. Now, is it just where the earth has been pushed up, or is there something there? They're large. They look like a burial mound. Now, me personally, I won't dig one up. The scientist in me says, get your spade out and dig. The Native American medicine man in me says, don't you dare. And I listen to him, and I won't do it. Now, likely, it just might be an earthen formation that I'm not aware of. But if they are near our burial grounds,
and I've always wondered, and they're the size
of a Sasquatch.
Something, of a Sasquatch, exactly.
8 to 10 feet long and about 4 feet wide and about 2 feet off the ground, and they've got saplings growing out of them where seeds have planted. They're older. It could even be a native mound or whatever, as far as I know. But if it's someone's burial, and I consider a Sasquatch a someone, not a something. If it's someone's grave, if it's someone's grave, I'm not going to disturb it, because that's just that is something that I do not believe in. I do not. I've dedicated burial mounds up in Ohio that were Native American for preservation societies and that, and I thank them for not allowing archaeologists in there to dig. We've got enough evidence on Native Americans. Let's let them lay in peace. And if the Sasquatch buries his dead, let's leave him alone too. It's done nothing to us. Why should we dig him up? So, I really don't know on why they're attracted to it. It interests me that they are, and you see a lot of reports. I don't hold with there's something supernatural about the burial ground and the Bigfoot. I feel it's more of a spiritual thing, some kind of a ceremonial thing on their part.
Can you recall any of the ceremony that you were talking about earlier that honors the Bigfoot?
Well,
can you recall any of it?
Part of it, yes. Part of it has translated down. We have something called the Mashona or the Mashigwa. It's the boogeyman of the Shawnee. And the medicine man, myself, would dress in this garb, and when the children, and the garb is a bear skin with a wood mask, and the wood mask is carved to represent the Sasquatch's face. And when the children would start to act up in our sacred ceremonies, I would take a rattle, and I would go over in this bear and, big hairy costume and that, and I would shake the rattle at the children to make them behave. That same costume and that very same rattle was also used to honor the Bigfoot. That's where the Shawnee word Mashona or Mashigwa, it's hard for me to pronounce that word, has come to mean Bigfoot, and it's not our name for the Bigfoot. I always correct people. I said, I know you all saying that's a Shawnee word for the Bigfoot, but it's not. That word actually means boogeyman, is what it means. But the reason why it's translated wrongly, and people say, well, no, you're wrong. I said, no, I'm right, because I conduct the ceremony. I know. I said, it's translated in because I would dress in the same costume just to conserve, you only had so many costumes that you used. I would use that same costume to force the children to behave, acting like a boogeyman. Well, the original origin of that costume was the same costume that was used to honor the old ones of the force. And what we did would bring them gifts to honor them for allowing us to share their area with us. Because I'm sure my ancestors knew that we would be no match for them if they decided they wanted to go to war against us. You think 300 years ago, 400 years ago, before we had, or more like farther back now, the 1400s, we're looking at 600 years ago now, before we got guns, what is a spear or a bow and arrow going to do against a Sasquatch? You're going to piss him off. We showed them respect so that they respected us and allowed us to stay in their area. And that's what the ceremony was.
I've always heard this, to gravitate towards people with native blood. People with native blood tend to get a lot farther along in this research than people that don't have native blood.
I've got several theories on that. Some of them I don't go into because they are personal to the tribe, but I will say it's because I think we have a respect and there's a connection. An energy they feel from us. I mean, I'm going to go into science here, and this is part of my discipline of medicine. There is a discipline of my field of medicine called therapeutic touch, which uses an energy like Reiki is what it's similar to, and it's proven that we do have an energy field. It can be photographed. Well, if you have a being that's sensitive to that, they can sense those energy fields within humans, even though we can't sense them with them. That may be why they're drawn to the Native American. It's something in a racial thing that they are used to and they're more comfortable with. Why are they more attracted to women and children? I think it's more of that child or that woman is not likely going to be the one, nowadays I can't say that with the women and guns, but, originally are not going to be the ones that's going to have the guns, because I make my wife carry a 45 in the woods, and it's not for the Bigfoot. Where we squatch at, there's a cougar loose in there. I have found this prints a couple of times. I've seen it once, and it terrifies me that it's in there with us. So we both carry sidearms. But it's for that animal and not the Sasquatch. And I think they're attracted to children playing and women because they feel less threatened. But certain men, native men, they may feel a kindredshipness that existed for hundreds of years. There's something to be said about genetic memory. We have that. It's just science doesn't want to. Well, it isn't that we don't want to touch upon it. We can't quantify it. And if we can't quantify it or qualify it, we don't want to acknowledge it. That's why Bigfoot is still not accepted by mainstream science. That, and you get the ludicrous stories. You get people out there saying, oh, I saw him beam down from a UFO, or he's got laser vision, and crap like that, is why mainstream science does not want to deal with the phenomena of Sasquatch, because we've yet to be able to qualify enough research on it. And if we can't get quality research, we can't quantify it. And when we can't do that, we don't want to acknowledge it because it leaves us with our pants down. We need more information. That's why mainstream science is so reluctant to pursue the topic of the Sasquatch, except for the few of us who've been out there.
It's hard to pursue a topic that can't be pursued.
Exactly. And the only ones who are willing to stick our necks out are the few of us that have actually just been out there and been fortunate enough to be gifted with the sight of one or an encounter. And then we're saying, you know what, this thing exists, and if it exists, then I can prove or get information. And people say, well, why do you care? I said, well, I look at it like any other. When I was a biologist, I did research to protect the wolf and different species. That's, ecology. I work with a lot of ecology groups for habitat preservation. Same thing will go with the Sasquatch. Preserve its habitat, but leave it alone. It doesn't. I hope we never have one to study. I really.
Now I gotta ask
for me. Go ahead.
I gotta ask you. A lot of people have been using the Jane Goodall approach too. Do you consider Sasquatch capable of a Jane Goodall approach to it? Well, I mean, the gorillas were pretty much stuck within a small radius of land. They were easy enough to be able to find. By the local tribes and stuff led them to these places where the gorillas were. And granted, it took a while for the usual getting to know the gorillas, and gorillas get to know you kind of thing. But something is mobile and so elusive as a Bigfoot. How can you use something like a Goodall approach, and how can you get even close to them to get any kind of scientific evidence other than the prints? The DNA and things like that.
Well, you have two things there. For one, you've got an animal, a being. We're animals. We have a being that's likely on a par of intelligence as close to us as you're going to get. It's a different intelligence because. People ask, well, do you think Sasquatches are as intelligent as people? I said, absolutely. They outthink me all the time. And I said, but their intelligence has been geared towards a different type of survival. We had to develop tools and weapons in order to survive, and plus we had war among ourselves, which greatly advanced our technology. Most of our technological advancements in medicine and science have come through from war. If you have a creature that is 9 feet tall on average, let's say 8 feet tall on average, can lift probably 1,000 pounds without straining to my 200 pounds, can run at speeds of 30 to 40 miles an hour, you don't have anything in the wild that can oppose you. You can get the food you need. You can defend yourself. You've got fur covering. You don't need clothing. You're warm. You can provide everything you need. You don't need to develop the tools, the shelter, or anything that man has had to do to survive. We could not survive without fire. Sasquatch can. So you got an animal that's very intelligent. In doing so, you got an animal, a being that is very wary of what it's seen man do. Well, the gorilla did not have that much knowledge of man. Man was something new in its environment. It was likely more accepting and curious as long as it didn't feel threatened. Sasquatches, being smarter and having extensive experience with observing man, are likely not going to be that trusting for us to get to do a really good habituation study. Now, I believe we can get some interaction with them as long as they feel in a less threatened manner, and as long as it's consistent, we're going to get some interaction. But are we going to get the interaction that I believe the native people once have? Not after several hundred years of the interactions they've watched between man, the red man and the white man against the white man, and different things that we've seen in our own history. I think
well,
they're wary enough.
Through the Civil War too, so they know.
Yes, it's like they're not going to be dumb enough to let us get that close. And I think they would understand if they did became out in the open and expose themselves. What's the first thing that's going to happen if they expose themselves and we have the opportunity? We're going to drop one and bring it in and study it.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be the first thing we want to do. We're going to try to tranquilize it. We're going to try to trap it. We're going to shoot it, whatever, to bring it in to study it. And I think they know that. So is a Jane Goodall approach going to matter? Using that approach, is it going to matter to them? No, they're going to look at us and look at them. We're not that dumb. We're not going to fall for that. Now, if we throw rocks at them and get them to come out here so we can enjoy them being stupid, me and my partner always say the same thing. We are their entertainment. When we're out in the woods, we're doing our stuff, they're laughing their butts off at us. They think we're entertaining. Are they dumb enough to get close enough to us to let us know? No. We might see something in the distance, the peripheral go between two trees, a shadow. We've caught one crossing the road once, and we caught one between two trees once when I just happened to turn around at the right moment, and there he stood and he froze in the middle of two trees, and I saw him. Other than that, they're very, and as soon as I moved and I pointed him out, he was gone. He turned and went through the forest so fast we couldn't even, we tried to keep up with him, and we couldn't get through the thorns that he went through. They know better than to let themselves be exposed. And I always believe that if they're interacting with us, they've got a dozen escape routes that we don't know about, and they're not going to let us get that close to them. I just do not believe that they're going to allow that type of an interaction anymore. If you go back to the story of Daniel Boone, what did he do when he first saw one? He shot it, the Yahoo, which was the Cherokee word for the Bigfoot. So their likely encounters are saying, no, we're just not going to do that anymore. So I don't think a Jane Goodall approach will work. I do think we can learn a lot from habituation and the markers they leave from us. We can study that, and we can study the evidence that we have. And DNA evidence does tell us a lot. If you're to believe the studies that Melba Ketchum has done, and I've spoken with Melba Ketchum several times and some of the other groups that kind of pulled their studies back when she caught all the flack, even though their studies basically showed the exact same results that hers did. You got to take it with a grain of salt. They saw what she came under fire and how it ruined her career. They're not going to go through that. But those type of studies give us more information now than anything else we're going to get. Until science gets to the point to where somehow we're going to be able to just track them, or we get the funding to do so, to where we can get a tracker on one. And if you do, what's it going to do? It's not a bear. It's going to pull it off and smash it. I mean, I don't know how many cameras Northern Kentucky Bigfoot have lost. I lost count. When I was there, they lost 7. We find the shadow on the tree. Yeah, we lost 7 cameras. Or we see a hand in front of the camera while the other one ate the peanut butter. And then we see the hand move and another hand come in. And while something else finished the peanut butter off tied to the tree. And then when the peanut butter in the jar was finally empty, they tore it off and set it on a fire or something. Say, hey, we want more here. You know, those are the kind of interactions, if you're lucky and you habituate for years in one area, you might get. Me and my partner has been trying for years now, and we can't get them to accept anything we leave them. All we can do is get rocks thrown at us, and they leave markers for us. They do. The last time we were out was 2 weeks ago, and we were sitting on the side of the highway in the woods upskirts where the highway is, and you can reach out and touch the trees on the guardrail we were studying on. And something started hitting the guardrail, and we looked at each other. I said, "Do you feel that?" I felt that. We sat there a minute, something hit the guardrail again. And I hit the guardrail with my stick and made a thud, got it repeated. Did that several times. I said, but that's not a stick. It's a different thud. I stood up while my partner Rick sat there, and I kicked it with my foot, and he said, that's what I'm feeling. Something big is kicking it on down on the curve of the road. Let's go down and see what it is. We get up to start running down the road. All of a sudden, rocks came at us. And we turned to look over in the other area where the rocks came. What happened? The other one went in the trees off from where that guardrail was and disappeared. So they're not going to let us get a glimpse. I mean, they were messing with us. You don't mess with Sasquatch. Sasquatch messes with you. They were getting our attention. You know, they were throwing rocks at us from the bushes where we couldn't see them, but the rocks would land at our feet. One landed right in front of him when he started to get up off that rail and walk down the road. It landed, hit right in front of his feet. I saw it arc out of the bushes. I ran across the road to the forest to try to go into the forest to see where it came from. I couldn't see anything, but time he got down the rail, there was nothing there, but we saw where something went down a path on the forest down into a creek bed and was gone. So, you know, they always have an out, and I think there's usually more than one when you encounter them. You just don't realize it. If you see one, you're lucky. There might be 3 or 2, or, you know, like scouts or something out there. So we have found baby footprints in this area. We found handprints in our area. I had a beautiful cast. We found it, and I went back to get my casting supply. I got Mama's print, which turned out beautifully. It was about 15 inches, but baby's cast, when we went back to get it, had a deer print in the middle of it, and it kind of ruined it. I did get the cast, but you could tell I had a baby's footprint. But we have seen evidence of, 5 different ones in the area we're researching right now, different size footprints, and gotten cast of. So I do believe this theory they live in family groups.
Do you think they train their young when they're very little to
Absolutely.
avoid people?
Absolutely. I think that's probably the first thing that they do. I mean, just like we do our children. We teach our children not to touch the stove, not to drink out of the toilet. We change our children to do that. I'm sure they do the same thing. Don't leave stuff where they can find you. Watch how you walk to not leave prints. Don't go away from mommy and daddy. Watch out for the wild animals. I mean, the theory that they track after coyotes, or maybe coyotes track after them to get the leftover kill, that's highly possible. And a baby squatch, coyotes would be a meal. I'm sure their children are not left unattended. And they're taught the same things we would. We teach our children, don't go up to a strange dog. They teach their child, don't go up to that pack of coyotes, or don't go up to that mountain lion, or don't go into that human settlement. Stay next to us where we can protect you. I think children, until the one youngest one I saw, he had a 12-inch footprint. He was my height, about 6 foot tall, and he looked like a skinny black kid out of the hood, except he was all black and hairy. And that poor thing was terrified when it saw me, but it was young. And, if it had been his 8-foot dad that had been seen in that area, I don't think he would have ran from me. He'd have got up out of the tree and looked at me, grunted, and turned and just walked off. He wouldn't have been afraid of me. But that kid knew to be terrified of a human being. Why else would it have, looked at me, its eyes wide, and just took off as fast as it could? And even at only 6 foot, that thing would have eaten me, for lunch. I wouldn't have been able to stand up against that thing. Not something that can run 30 miles an hour like that across the hill. It easily matched a deer speed going up the side of that hill. And it was a hill that I had to go on my hands and knees to get up. So. Well,
I've discovered down here that juveniles are rather brazen. I don't know if they, someone in my past called it counting coup.
Just like the Indians do.
Yes. And that they do things like run across the top of my house. And Lauren can testify to that. And things like that are banging the side of a house and then running off.
I never, that's, as someone that's a half-breed Native American, I never thought of that. But that is the best explanation that I have ever thought of. The counting coup, they, the old messing with Sasquatch, they are just doing that to us. Look, we can do this and freak you out, and yet you can't find us.
I
mean, that's the entertainment value.
It's almost as though they dare each other to do it. They dare.
Mom and Dad are probably 100 yards away watching the situation, and as long as the kids don't get too weird about it, the kids are probably just surrounding you. They're 8 or 6 feet worth of kid, 200 pounds worth of kid, but they're still, bouncing around like any kid would do.
Oh yeah, and it's entertainment. I mean, how many times when you were younger, well, I don't know in Texas, but here in Indiana and Kentucky, we used to hide behind bushes with snowballs and throw them at cars, and then when the car would squeal and stop, we'd run off into the woods. That we were counting coup on the cars. I mean, it's no different than what we did, or when you egged a house, or when you rang your doorbell.
Do you know where your children are? And I imagine it's the same way with Sasquatch. They don't know where their children are, and they might be out hunting. They may be watching their young ones, and these teenagers are kind of left to their own devices, and they could get in trouble.
And that. I would say that one that we caught that one time in that ditch, I imagine he wasn't supposed to be there. And two things went through his mind when I called him behind that bush. Oh, my God, he's gotten close to me. And, oh, my God, my daddy's going to tan my hide when he finds out I got seen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because that's the first thing I would do to my child. You did what? You let him see you? Are you stupid?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's exactly how we feel when we're in the woods. We have to laugh. It's like, you know what? We're not doing anything. We are their entertainment. It's like, here are these two dumb squatchers coming back in the woods. Let's see what they do today, Let's laugh at them. Hey, they're leaving. We want them to stay. Let's throw rocks at them, see if we can draw them back in here again or something, Now,
that could be used to your advantage if you can get the curiosity enough to stand up right in front of you, or move into the camp and pick something up off the table, that kind of thing, while you're sitting a few feet away. If you can get their curiosity enough, and if they feel safe enough to be able to do something like that, a teenager would be more likely to come to you than an adult.
One researcher I had told me they were in Texas, actually. It was a BFRO lady that asked me to come to one of their groups they put out. I ain't paying nobody to go squatching. I do that in my backyard. But anyway, I talked to her, and she said she was in Texas on one of she was in Texas on one of their expeditions, and for lack of a better word, their expeditions, and she said they were sitting in camp, and this young Sasquatch ran through their camp at breakneck speed, and they could see it, just do it, but it was, dark at night, and it was just a fire, and she said what it reminded her of was back in the 60s and 70s when people would streak.
Streak,
she said it was like a young streaker running through their camp, daring them to try to chase him, He was just running through their camp. He did it a couple of times, and I thought, I guess he felt trusting. They had been there for a couple of nights to do that. And I guess it's no different than I'm trusting that when I go out into the woods and I camp, or me and my partner are way out in these woods when there's no one out, and the areas we go into, we get dropped in. We have to hike into, and then we hike back out to the nearest road to get picked back up again. We're talking remote areas. When we're out there, if they wanted to harm us, no one would ever know where we are. No one would ever find us again. The only reason some of the areas I find my way in and out of, if my partner Rick's not with me to find my way back out, because I'm an absent-minded professor. When I start tracking something, I'll look on the ground and I'll go for a mile and then look up. Oh, I forgot to look at landmarks. Where am I? I'll carry a GPS. When I go with him, he can find his way back out. So it's a good team that way. He can track, and he's been a hunter all of his life. He brings us back out. Me, I was a biologist. I wanted to look at every little thing on the ground. Where do I find any poop over here, or where do I find in this imprint and that? And I forget where I'm at. So if I don't take a GPS in some of the areas that I go into or that we go in together, I would get lost doing that, out there. So they could have easily, at any given time, we would have disappeared and no one would have known it. So I guess that's why I'm trusting when I go out there that they're not going to hurt me. But if I do feel them get aggressive...
within the groups and stuff, is that it has to do with intent. They can read intent.
It does. I think they can smell the intent, just like, when humans, we get scared or we get angry or we have bad intent, our pheromone signatures are different. That's why dogs, everybody says, how come you can go up to any dog? Because they know I'm not afraid of them, and they know I'm not going to hurt them. They can smell that on me. I have no fear of I've worked with timber wolves for 13 years.
I think it's a little bit more than that. I think it has a lot more to do with just this, and I'm not going to say a force. It's a natural thing that we've forgotten how to use, and they've got instincts. They can.
Yeah.
I say that Bigfoot basically swims through nature. They can sense everything in their hair, in their ears.
Well, they sense our body language. They sense our smell. They sense our changes, and all of our changes that we at one time as Native Americans used to do. Mm-hmm. I've heard tribal elders talk of white men stinking when they're they stink with fear. And you can smell fear on people. You can smell alcohol when someone comes in. They have or they're in diabetic ketoacidosis. They can walk in or have a MRSA infection. I can tell you that guy's got a MRSA infection. It's +3 in that wound. They'll look at me and say, culture it, and you'll see. And I said, how can you know? I've been doing this for years. I've developed the instinct for it. We didn't even smell nothing. I said, well, I've trained myself. They're trained on everything in the woods. If they didn't, they wouldn't survive. So I do think they sense intent. How you're walking, what you're doing. Hunters.
Now, like you say, you carry. Yeah, you carry, but you're not there for the intent.
No, and I'm not carrying openly to where, like with a hunter with a rifle that's trying to hunt something. I'm carrying in a holster that's in a fanny pack or something like that. I still say they know I've got a gun there. I also carry a big stick, and people say, what's that for? Well, so I can walk, and if you get jumped by a cougar, you can't get your pistol out of the holster in time. At least with a big stick, you can club that sucker once and then get your gun out and shoot him. But they know the intent. They know you're in there for whatever reason or when you're camping. But a hunter with a shotgun walking through the woods, I don't think they're going to interact.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they know. He's in there with a different intent. I think you're 100% right. They know intent. Their instincts are keen. They know their environment 100 times better than we do, and that's their environment when we're out there and not ours. But can you imagine one of them trying to walk around the mall, one of our environments? No.
So when they leave you go ahead, Grass.
No, I was thinking about that new show, Killing Bigfoot. There's several groups out there that are now kill.
Is that damn thing still on?
Yeah, I think so.
It is? Okay. I've gotten so I don't watch any of the Bigfoot shows. I just can't, I can't tolerate them. I'm sorry, but most of them, I just look at them and say, the killing Bigfoot, for one, would be wrong in my person. That's murder no matter who you are. You're killing another being. I wouldn't want any part of that. Finding Bigfoot, I've met everybody. I was on the show before. It's just entertainment. That's all it is. It's strictly I like Swamp People. I think Swamp People's funny to watch. I enjoy it. It's all scripted. It's all entertainment. That's all it
Monster
is.
Hunters or Monster.
I couldn't bring myself to watch that. That was Gilligan's Island did Bigfoot.
I know, but it's funny. That's funny to watch.
I've watched a few times, and I thought, you know what? If they had real bullets, they'd have blown each other's legs off by now.
I know. It's crazy. All those shotguns flailing around all over the place.
Yeah,
they should have shot somebody by now.
I know, and it's like, man, somebody's been that poor old fat kid.
He keeps falling over and falling over and falling over. They know he's got buck's going to fall tonight.
Yeah, so I watched a few of them. I said, okay, that's enough. And they always find something. It always gets. I said, that's Gilligan's Island does Bigfoot or the werewolf or whatever it is. Yeah. After one or two of those, I said, that's enough. I did used to watch the
the monster beef. Finding Bigfoot. That's basically on the Beef Row model, and Matt is in charge of it. And it's on the Beef Row model, and every time Beef Row goes into town, they take a crew of 20 or 30 people into town and just stomp through the woods like, we're going to find Bigfoot now any minute now. There's going to be a Bigfoot out here. I just know it.
And, it's like, you're not going to find nothing. You're not going to find anything,
Well, they actually went out there with a couple of 100 people in one group one time. That was about
I remember that. They were walking in like tandem to find prints or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were looking for anything, basically.
Yeah, I was like, no, and Bobo's a chicken. He is scared to go out. When he's on those camping trips, no. They took him out in Kentucky up here. By the one team I was with took him out in Kentucky. He got scared and wanted to go back.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I mean I can tell you things. I mean you know, and Renee doesn't want you to show her up in your education. It was like, well, you don't have much education. If you want to compare pedigrees here, I've got you beat quite a bit here. So, you know, you may be a field biologist, but I was a chemist, a biologist, and now I practice medicine. I've got a few more degrees than you do, you know, and I do believe in one. But I thought Matt was fun. Matt really is enthusiastic. He really does love what he's doing. I think he's goofy. I will admit he's goofy, but I liked him. I thought he was fun. He's very enthusiastic. He loves what he does.
Well, just don't tick him off. I did.
Oh, okay. And I thought Cliff
I took him off one time.
Too.
I don't think he and I would get along too much.
But I mean, you know, Bobo was stoned when I was there. And Renee, if you're a guy, she just don't like guys, if you know what I mean. So I just, you know, he wasn't over. But she was personable, I will say that, and she was kind of fun. She was very polite and very, very respectful the whole time I was there. I talked to Cliff, and most of all, we you know, I showed him pictures of prints and stuff that I got, and he was fun to talk to. He is intelligent. And I do like his and Matt's enthusiasm. But watching the show, I got to be bored, and there has to be nothing else I can do at the moment, and I just want something to watch when I eat. Other than that, I haven't even watched this year's yet. So I started watching the Supernatural one, that 2-hour premiere, and it's like, this is enough. I'm done here. You know, I'm done with all that. So, you know, I just gave up on that.
And the thing, there are people out there doing GoFundMes all over the place now to start new shows and to make teasers and to make their own documentaries. Every Tom, Dick, and Shirley is out there trying to make one.
See, I have no desire to be on TV again. I did it once. I got invited. I went with the group. I made some great friends. I will say the best experience I've had with the show and being on it. People's recognized me, and I've made some really good friends. People like yourselves that I've met through this activity. I have made good friends that I kept in contact with, and I can say that it's been worth that. Would I ever care to go back on the show again? No, never. Even if I find proof, I don't want to be on, you know, I don't do it for the reason for TV or for any kind of notoriety or fame. I do it because it is just, it's kind of like I call, it's either born again squatching or you're addicted. You took some Squatch cocaine and you got to have more. You just want to go out there. Or you just, it's addictive. If I haven't been out in the woods in a few months or a few weeks, we have to, you know, okay, this weekend we're going out. It's like, well, it's raining this weekend. Well, crap, we can't go out. You know, well, let's hope next weekend. Like this weekend, except I've got a cold, a bad one. I've had a fever for 2 days. We're going to try to go out Saturday. It's Derby Saturday here locally. And everybody will be over across the river at the Kentucky Derby. So where we like to go is going to be empty. And we're thinking, what a good day to try to go out. There will be no cars on the highways or nothing where we go. It'll be quiet. You know, we can get back into the woods and just enjoy it without any distractions out there and all the traffic and all the, you know, just to get there. There'll be nothing. It'll be just quiet woods again. And what would be a great time to try that? Because everybody will be over in Louisville wanting to watch the horses. Go ahead.
After talking about the finding Bigfoot stuff, you know, there's all kinds of people, all kinds of new people out there in the woods just stomping around all over the place, learning from these shows. But we've got 6 minutes left. Okay. What would be your advice for a newbie, other than finding Bigfoot?
As far as watching the show? Or just advice on squatching?
How would you train a newbie? What would be your first?
The main thing I always tell people is to when you go out, watch your environment. You watch everything, and you look for anything that looks out of place, and you listen. You know, you're not going to find anything when you take a large group of people out there. Never go alone, but always go with somebody. 1, 2, 3 people is more than enough. Always know the area you're going into. Have a time that you're going in and have a time that you're going out, and have people know where you're going that you can trust, not to give away your location, because once you give away your location, if you find an area that has a Bigfoot in it and you tell somebody, you're going to have 100 other Bigfooters in there wanting in on your territory. So keep anything you find very, very to yourself, because you will lose your research area and it's cutthroat out there. I will also tell newbies one of the things, this is not about how to squatch, this is about just human nature. Be careful who you trust going out in the woods with. Don't go out in the woods with somebody just because they're a Bigfooter and you think you're a Bigfooter and you're both going to be nice. Make sure you get to know an individual. It took me several times with my partner Rick before we went out. We met several times, talked. We talked on the phone. We talked online for months and months before we either agreed to go out in the woods with each other. And now we're best friends. I call him my brother. You know, we go out all the time. But it took a long time before me to do that. The other ones I went out with, same thing. I got to know them before I was willing to go out in the woods with. It's safer that way. And anyone that you're going to take out with you, just always remember, they may want your knowledge and your area as well. So don't be so trusting. You know, be cautious when you do that. Now, as far as squatching, all I can say to you is when you're out in the woods, keep your mind on your environment. Look at the ground, look at the trees, look at anything out of, that's out of the ordinary or out of place. Listen and watch for movement. But the best thing you can do as a squatcher is always dispute what you find. Always debunk yourself first. Do not jump to it's a Sasquatch. Always debunk everything you can find. And if you can't give it an answer, then put a question mark on it and keep going. But always debunk what you find. So the three things is be safe when you're going out there. Make sure you can trust who you're going out there with, and keep your area to yourself or to your group that you're with. Make sure that it's, yours and yours alone. And then when you're out there, no matter what you find, be aware and debunk yourself. And then you have a chance of maybe finding evidence, or if you're in the right spot, and you have to be in that right spot, you may have an encounter. And my first time
remember,
was just
it's called a wilderness for a reason.
Exactly. And always have someone know where you're going and when you're going to come back out, so that just in case. And don't ever go by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can carry. If
carry, and I always take water and a first aid kit in with me every time I go.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know, and something to start a fire with. It can happen.
Right.
I keep that in my Jeep. If you're out in the wilderness, yes. Or my case, I carry a GPS.
GPS does no longer work.
I do. I have a compass. I do have a compass on my keychain, so I always have one of those too. Yes, because I will get lost.
That's the first thing that popped into my head when you said you were using your GPS. Well, wait a minute.
I do have a compass on my keychain too, and I do know how to use a compass and find my way out with a good old-fashioned map. I still like old maps. I'm old enough at 53 to remember maps before GPSs went in. GPS is just kind of cool, though.
Yeah, as long as you
they are just kind of cool. Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Most of the areas I squatch in, you can't use your phone for GPS because there's no phone service out where I go.
Mm-hmm.
We have to hike back to the road before we'll get a phone signal. So, that's true.
Laura, you got any questions?
No, other than, the newbie is out there and they are in Sasquatch territory and rocks get thrown at them. What do you suggest they do?
If the rocks are landing close but not at them, watch your environment. But if you start hearing tree shaking, growls, rocks are getting thrown close, leave. They don't want you there.
Okay.
It's better not to piss off something that can pull you in half like you were just a dandelion from the ground if you don't have to. So if they don't want you there, respect that. Just like if you go into someone's house and they ask you to leave, you better wear a leave because they may have a 12 gauge like I do underneath my couch. Respect what you're doing. If you have that respect for them, I don't feel you're in danger. If they're warning you, just like a bear, when you're in bear country, make noise. And if you hear a bear, leave. Respect where you're at, and you're not likely to get hurt. If they're shaking trees, they start breaking trees off. You hear growls, you hear threatening noises, or you get rocks thrown too close, turn around and leave. But if little pebbles are landing at your feet, look around. If you start feeling that you're afraid, heed that. There's a reason why we have fear. It's to keep you safe. And if you're afraid out there, you don't need to be out there. That's the best thing I can tell them.
Speaking of
you're afraid, leave.
You were a fantastic guest, Wolfman.
Well, thank you.
I would love to
that.
have you back again sometime. I hope you will.
Well, I'd love to.
Again.
I've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate the chance to speak with you guys and to get to know you, and I'd love to at one time.
And I hope you get to feeling better. You did a marvelous job for somebody who's under the weather.
Oh, thank you.
Really?
It's a passion I love, and getting sick is kind of an occupational hazard with me. I'm exposed to everything, so I'm used to going on when I catch something. I just almost forgot the time. Good old Benadryl will do that to you.
Yes. Well, thank you for coming on, and I guess
thank you guys.
We are going to go ahead and call it a night. Everyone, let's say goodnight, and Wolfman, we're having you back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you again, and everybody say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.